Today's story, as I mentioned, Shabbos today is the yard site, the 50th yard site of Rav Baron Eliezer ben Yeshua Hershel al Vashalim. So a context and a reminder, just a little story that I've mentioned probably by Fabrengen once with him. The other day, Rabbi Label Shapiro, Rosh Yeshiva in Miami, that I learned under as a bocher, and my son-in-law, and now my grandson. It's the third generation that he's Rosh Yeshiva teaching. So he verbringt on Zoom Shabbos Bereshis, and as usual, it was very geschmack and many stories and so on. And he mentioned Derech Agav. He mentioned something that Peretz Mochkin told him. The Peretz Mochkin has celebrated Mashpia here in Montreal. Of course, the Mochkin family, Beryl, the head of Tzachas, his son. So he used to see him often because his aunt was Peretz's daughter, Shapiro, Devisha Shapiro's wife. So the parents what's told him, he's saying the context of how the Avodah has changed. That Amol and the Babich, Skafia was the whole, the Avodah restraint and so on. So the parents told him, Levo Shapiro, that he went to Lubavitch as a child, like a teenager. He wasn't that old when he left home. He was at Mustama of a Bar Mitzvah, for sure of a Bar Mitzvah, but not much more. And he didn't live far. His hometown wasn't very far from Lubavitch. Notwithstanding that, he wasn't home for 3 years. After 3 years, he came home. You can imagine, the mother, a child. So he said that when he came home, at one point, his mother said to him, and Rabbi, as we call him, quotes the parent. She said, "Peretzel, you lost an apple. Would you like an apple?" It's the middle of the day, she's offering him an apple. So the parrot says that he was so shocked, it was like his mother was offering him chazet reif. It's an apple in the middle of the day just because to enjoy an apple. That's how ingrained was the avodah of Iskafi with food and everything else. So the label was saying, Label Shapiro, that's not the avodah today. Whether it's a Milo or Chsaron or both, that's the reality. So I just want to tell you in that context that Anleiser was a chassid of old. And the Iskafia today, by the way, so it's not in food necessarily. Like I think I told you, the Iskafia today is not to be fussy about food and to compliment your wife. Not to not eat. But at any rate, Anleiser's Iskafia was in everything. He pushed himself in every area that ever came out with a mitzvah. Anleiser was restless and agitated, and it has to be done. And there was no comfort zone that would stop him. You know the story on the plane with Hakel, without repeating the story now. So I'm just giving you a snippet as a bocher, a kid in yeshiva. I told this recently, I think, as a breakfast. The breakfasts in Australia were not elaborate in those days, and some of them still not. Very simple, bread and butter and tea and coffee, cereal, I think. And then maybe they start introducing jam or something. So the boys were piling on the jams. Anleiser gives Agishrei sitting with us, Chevri Skafia. In all of his innocence and sincerity, Skafia. You have to have the jam, but it can eat without jam. So today is his yortzeit. I think we should help that all of his, begin with, that all of his children, grandchildren will be blessed. As you note in the Mayim with the Bana Chaim is in the Revicha, he's definitely with the Rebbe. And so since the Rebbe is not reposing in paradise in tranquility, so I would venture to guess either is Anleiser. So he's still at work. We thank him for that. And the main thing, we should be reunited without delay. Here in this world, he suffered terribly the last months of his life. Terrible, terrible Yisurim. Terrible Yisurim. You know, we say when a person leaves the world this way, they write about such a person, is dachach b'yisurim, became purified through suffering. That's something that we would, God forbid, request. But that's the reality. Why? Nobody knows. Only God knows. The Mishnah knows, the Rebbe knows. But at any rate, it was. So now he is with the Rebbe, and we should be reunited with him, with our Rebbe and him and all Chassidim and all Klal Yisrael. Take it from the Yad Mamish. Have a wonderful day, everybody.